My destined partner was intercepted by a transmigrated woman. I immediately turned and threw myself into the arms of my childhood sweetheart. As the saying goes, a sudden love interest can't compare to a childhood sweetheart, proud yet considerate, with both looks and brains. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. I'm the delicate, fragile white lotus currently popular in historical romance novels, while she's the hot-tempered, multi-talented heroine from transmigration stories. The male lead, a brilliant and resourceful prime minister, naturally found himself drawn to the equally exceptional transmigrated woman, so there I was, shipping my favorite couple on the sidelines while the system screamed frantically in my ear. This is bad, it's doomed, this world is going to hell sooner or later. I coughed up blood and downed a bowl of medicine. Ah, love is truly wonderful. I won't go into detail about how I was deathly ill at 8 years old when suddenly bound to this system. In short, the system claimed it was here to fix a bug, and that bug was me. As the female lead, I had to stay alive. Only by persistently completing missions to achieve a happy ending could I barely cling to life. Pei Shu was the male protagonist the system had set for me. He achieved the top scholar title at 18, became a third-rank official by 20, and rose to become the nation's youngest chief grand secretary at 24, a true prodigy soaring effortlessly to success. The year he won the top scholar honor, I was still a little girl with pigtails, cradled in my mother's arms. When the handsome scholar rode his horse down the long street, young maidens would shyly toss fruits his way. Back then, the system still knew how to coax me. That's your future husband, do you like him? I was staring absent-mindedly at the red flower by Sui Yi's ear when he suddenly turned around, startling me. What are you staring at? Jealous of how handsome I am? My mother burst into laughter, pulling me closer and tucking me into her embrace. His mother smacked the back of his head, exasperated. You little brat, itching for a beating. How dare you bully your sister? Hiding in my mother's arms, I watched as Sui Yi grimaced in pain and couldn't help but giggle foolishly. And so, the glorious scene of the top scholar faded into obscurity in my mind, leaving only the vivid memory of a single red flower tucked behind the young boy's ear, burning bright in my recollections. The system asked, "Aren't you jealous? That's your future husband." I set down the medicine bowl and popped a candy into my mouth. The couple I ship is so sweet. Avoiding petty competition between women is one thing, but struggling to survive is another matter entirely. On the third day of my headache, chest tightness, and suffocation, I finally remembered the task of fostering feelings with the male lead, and the system suddenly sprang to life, weeping bitterly. My dear has come around. I'm so moved. Sigh. No choice. I can barely survive anymore. Over the years, I've figured out the system's unreliable survival mechanism. Talking to Pei Shu for 15 minutes adds 1 health point. Exchanging gifts with Pei Shu adds 5 health points. Physical contact with Pei Shu adds 10 health points. But according to the system, if I could do some unspeakably intimate things with Pei Shu, it would add 20 life points. 20 life points, enough to keep me alive for 2 more months. With trembling hands, I swallowed a 10-fold tonic pill and shakily went to find Pei Shu. At that moment, he was at the horse track instructing a student on horseback riding. The student was petite, and as Pei Shu helped him mount from behind, it almost looked like he was embracing him. I stood to the side, reluctant to interrupt. Xiao Dao supported half of my weight, visibly anxious. Chief Minister, on the 4th lap of the horses passing, Xiao Dao finally couldn't hold back and called out, "Our young lady has brought some food." I was watching with great interest, just as their little hands secretly clasped together and the young man leaned down to whisper something private to Pei Shu. When Xiao Dao's shout abruptly shattered that beautiful scene, the young scholar quickly stood up, his face brushing past Pei Shu's lips, and my eyes lit up with excitement. "Miss Song, what brings you here?" Pei Shu turned to look, his expression far from pleasant, by nature aloof. His tone grew even more brusque with his current displeasure. The young man had already dismounted and stood rigidly by his side. With an understanding smile, I handed over the food box. "Lord Pei, I've brought some pastries." Pei Shu stood rooted to the spot, showing no intention of coming forward. Those 5 health points from delivering food were clearly out of reach. I pondered how to engage him in conversation for a full quarter of an hour. The student beside him was quicker to react, stepping forward with a smile. "So you're Miss Song," he said, truly as captivating as the rumors say. His hand accidentally brushed against the back of mine. A soft ding echoed in my mind, startled. I turned to look at him. "What's wrong? Is there something on my face?" He raised his hand to wipe it haphazardly, but I grabbed his palm. Another ding sounded in my mind. 10 life points have been credited. Xiao Lanyu stood there at a loss. Miss Song." My heart was filled with both shock and joy, a whirlwind of thoughts. Remembering the scene of Xiao Lanyu being close to Pei Shu just moments ago, an impulsive idea surged into my mind. "Excuse me, Miss Xiao," in an instant. I pulled her close, tilting my head to plant a kiss on her cheek. Behind me, a furious, teeth-gritting voice erupted. "Songyun, what are you doing?" Like a thunderbolt striking me, I trembled and jerked my face away, breaking out in a cold sweat. "Sui Yi, what's he doing here?" A young man was striding over from not far away, radiant as a blossoming tree in the sunlight, his appearance wild and unrestrained, strikingly handsome, dressed in riding attire. His long legs were straight as arrows. With a beautiful little whip hanging at his waist, the youth rolled up his sleeves, ready to throw a punch, but I quickly grabbed his arm and pulled him back. Sui Yi, the sun's so bright today, you must be seeing things." "Fine, Songyun." He looked down at me, actually laughing in anger. "Why don't you tell me what I saw?" I stole a glance at him. "You saw me whispering with her." Xiao Lanyu looked at me with complicated emotions in his eyes. Pei Shu shook his head and pulled her aside. "Prince Sui, it was indeed a misunderstanding." Pei Shu's expression remained cold, showing no signs of abnormality. Sui didn't even glance at him, merely smiling as he asked me, "Songyun, a misunderstanding?" His smile was handsome, yet his demeanor clearly suggested murderous intent, as if the moment I nodded in agreement, he'd dare to bring a cleaver down on my neck. I shrank back slightly and whispered, "Can we discuss this at home?" A belated flush of embarrassment rose to my cheeks. Caught red-handed by an acquaintance during my first misdeed, all I wanted now was to vanish into the ground. Sui let out a derisive snort. "I thought you were truly shameless." I tugged at Sui to leave, while she openly shot daggers at Xiao Lanyu with her eyes. Pei Shu and I exchanged loaded glances, his gaze murderous. What a spectacular scene this was. It suddenly dawned on me, my fault. I accidentally slipped and called Xiao Lanyu Miss. At this moment, she was disguised as a man studying at the Imperial College. If her true identity were exposed, it would likely be a capital offense. I was already unsettled, and this only added to my terror. The male lead is truly frightening. I fear he's now suspicious of my intentions and might silence me permanently. He glared at me again, and my foot slipped as I gasped for air. "Don't scare me, I'm sick. If I die of fright, you'll pay for it." Sui grabbed my wrist, telling me to stop pretending and that one should take responsibility. Cold sweat poured down my back, my hands and feet turned icy, and in an instant, I couldn't stand straight, about to topple backward. "Songyun," he caught me just in time, pulling me into his embrace, his voice no longer clear and bright. "Don't sleep, just hold on a little longer." Xiao Dao trembled as she reached into her sleeve for medicine, only to see him swiftly produce a porcelain bottle from his robe, pinching a few pills and bringing them to my lips. I swallowed the medicine, gasping for breath as his hand gently stroked my back. The system's voice buzzed urgently in my ear. "This is all wrong, all wrong. I told you to properly build a relationship with the male lead. Now your life points are increasing inexplicably. Logically, if your life points rise, you shouldn't be having these episodes." It let out a long sigh. "If you can't change the male lead's feelings, I'm afraid the consequences will be unthinkable. Anyway, it's not like it matters," I muttered wearily. But then Sui leaned in close, his expression grave as he asked, "What did you say?" I didn't catch that. I hesitated, avoiding his gaze. "I don't feel well. Could you carry me back?" He immediately reverted to his usual arrogant demeanor. "Isn't Xiao Lanyu here? I'm far too precious to be waiting on others." I tugged at his sleeve. "Dear young master, you're practically family." Perhaps my face was truly pale and frightening, for he didn't retort this time. He merely raised an eyebrow and turned his back. Get on then, delicate thing. Leaves rustled as spring sunlight filtered through the foliage, casting dappled patterns across the youth's form. Perched on his shoulders, I stole glances at his profile. Looking at him this closely, I noticed his long eyelashes and delicate nose. His features weren't rugged like other men's, but rather more refined than even a girl's. No wonder so many girls liked him. I tightened my arms around his neck and bumped my head against his. He stopped walking and managed to squeeze out a few words. What the hell's wrong with you? You haven't come to play with me for a long time. I have to study every day. How could I come to you? Indeed, he had his own affairs to attend to, no longer the idle young man he once was. I lowered my eyes and whispered softly, "All right." Feeling wronged again, I whined without cause, "But we haven't seen each other for 10 days, aren't you afraid I might have died?" The wind stilled, and Swayi's shoulders visibly stiffened. He frowned. "Songyun, if you say such things again, I swear I'll throw you off." "Don't." I hugged him tighter. "You're so mean, even as a child." Swayi was like this, never giving me a kind look. Back then, before I fell seriously ill, I used to follow him around all day. I was a year younger than him. With still short limbs, he disliked how slow I was, how I couldn't run properly, and how I'd end up crying if I accidentally fell, so he always tried his best to avoid me. But my mother and his were close friends since their maiden days, and our families lived next door to each other. There was no escape for him, and when his temper flared, he'd pull a long face and act all high and mighty with me. I've always been a bit thick-skinned and wasn't afraid of him. When he got angry, I'd take the initiative to hold his hand and sweetly call him Brother Shizzy. No matter how sour his expression was, I could always coax him into a better mood. But that illness at the age of 8 drained all my energy. I could no longer follow at his heels. A tiny courtyard became the only place where I could move about. Swayi never came to see me. I thought he must be happy, finally rid of this burden that was me. But that night, he quietly climbed over the courtyard wall, slipped into my room, and wept by my pillow for a long time. I don't know where I suddenly found the strength, struggling to open my eyes. "Brother Shizzy, don't cry anymore. When you cry, it makes me so sad too." He didn't expect me to wake up and froze in place, his long eyelashes still glistening with crystal-clear tears. When he came to his senses, anger gradually surfaced on his face, and he snapped as usual, "Little song tail, what nonsense are you spouting? This young master is not that kind of person." I looked at him. "But you look so sad." His face flushed crimson in an instant, and he stammered with his neck stiff, "I just pity you. This young master has a kind heart and can't bear to see someone looking half dead." Moonlight spilled across the ground, the courtyard fragrant with blossoms. The young boy crouched by the bedside, wild and unrestrained. My eyes curved into crescents as I mustered my last strength to say, "Young master, I have a secret just for you alone." He asked, "What?" At that very moment, a voice suddenly echoed in my mind, "Successfully bound to the female lead system. System rebooting for detection." My vision went black, and I fainted. Swayi brought me back home. My mother held his hand and insisted he stay for dinner. There were no classes at the Imperial College tomorrow, so he had nothing pressing to attend to and thus nodded in agreement. During the meal, I sat beside him, fidgeting uncomfortably until my mother slapped my hand. "Stop squirming like that while eating, Mother," I called out softly, stealing a glance at the person beside me. "I mean, Swayi is here too, could you save me some face?" "Aunt, she's always been like this since childhood. Please don't take it to heart." "Huh, what do you mean I've always been like this since childhood?" I stared at his smiling face and stepped on it decisively, then buried my head in my rice bowl before he could shoot me a glare. My mother, however, was lost in memories because of these words. Yes, she's never been well behaved during meals. When she was even younger, I had to chase her around to feed her, though mischievous back then. At least she was healthy. I wish she could be like that again. Seeing the conversation veering toward melancholy, I quickly spoke up, eyeing a plate of braised pork. "Mom, I want a piece." No sooner had I spoken than Swayi scooped the last 2 pieces into his own bowl, raising an eyebrow at me. No, angry. It seems that last kick didn't hurt him enough. I met his gaze without flinching. "I want to eat." He acted as if he hadn't heard, sneering. "One of the ingredients in your medicine clashes with meat. If you want to feel sick later, then go ahead and eat." I stared at him in confusion. How do you know this? Sui Yi paused mid-action, remained silent for a long moment, then arrogantly placed a chopstickful of food into my bowl. I'm so clever. Unlike some people who are slow-witted, how could I tolerate this? I decisively turned my head to tattle. Mother, he insulted me. Aunt, I said some people, he replied. My mother laughed, her tone warm with relief. Aye, if you have time, come visit your little sister more often. I lowered my head and poked at my rice. Who needs his company? And since when was I his sister? After the meal, Sui Yi took his leave and returned to his residence. The twilight deepened as the evening breeze rose. I lay on the bamboo couch in the courtyard, idly gazing at the sky. A faint star flickered in the southwest corner, while a pale crescent moon hung low on the horizon. All around was silent, perfect for daydreaming, yet the system tirelessly nagged in my ear. I see your life points are at 32, enough for 3 months. But this data increase is completely unscientific. You'd better go find the male lead in the next few days. Lost in thought, I murmured. Since when did Sui Yi know medicine? The system noticeably hesitated. I was talking about Pei Shu. Oh, Pei Shu. I snapped back to attention. What about Pei Shu? Its tone turned reproachful. You don't even care about your own body, always waiting until your health points hit rock bottom to panic. The male lead is about to run off with someone else, and you're still not worried. What exactly would make you care? I thought about it seriously and nodded in agreement. You're absolutely right, it exclaimed excitedly. Then let's quickly make a plan to win back the male lead. I lay back in the bamboo chair, curling up. Let's sleep first. I'm so tired. System. Over the courtyard wall, a kite suddenly soared into the air, trailing a long swallowtail. My eyes lit up as I rose from the bamboo couch, picked up a pebble, and tossed it over the stone wall. Before long, there was movement by the wall. The youth leaped onto the top, his hair fluttering and the hem of his clothes sweeping through the air with effortless grace. He landed steadily beside me and raised a pair of bright eyes. Qinhuai River for some music, want to go? Yes, yes. I nodded repeatedly, naturally opening my arms, waiting for him to carry me. This habit of ours had lasted 9 years. To explain it would drag up a pile of old memories. After falling ill at 8 years old, I had to take medicine every day. Back then, I was afraid of the bitterness and would often vomit the medicine shortly after drinking it. My mother tried many methods, but none worked. Sui Yi heard about this and came to see me with a bamboo dragonfly. Tilting his chin up, he said, "Little song tale, haven't you always wanted this? I'll give it to you once you finish your medicine." With shining eyes, I obediently downed the entire bowl of medicine. He pressed the bamboo dragonfly into my hand with visible heartache. For it had always been his favorite possession, something he'd never been willing to part with before. I kissed him on the cheek, and he flushed crimson with bashful irritation. After that, he often came to me clutching little trinkets, never leaving until he'd seen me finish my medicine. Unable to bear his departure, I'd tug at his sleeve and trail after him. By then his temper had softened considerably, nothing like his former disdain, and he let me follow without complaint. I was nearly out the door when my mother came running to hug me. "Yunyun, brother Ai is coming back to the estate. Tell him see you tomorrow." I looked at mother and piped up brightly, "Can't I go home with brother the heir?" My father stood nearby and gave a haughty hmph, his little mustache quivering with indignation. "See, raising a daughter for someone else's family." Then he turned to Sui Yi and said, "Sui boy, go tell your father you'll come be our son, and we'll trade Song Yun over to you." Who would have thought Sui Yi would actually lift his eyelids and straightforwardly call out, "Dad?" Then he came over to take my hand and said, "Dad, I'm going home with her today. You can come pick me up tomorrow." My parents froze for a moment before suddenly bursting into laughter. In the end, Sui Yi was beaten back home by his father. Even through the courtyard wall, I could hear his father's booming voice, "You shameless rascal, no sense of decency. How did I end up with a son like you?" I watched Xiao Dao squatting in front of the ant hole and asked in confusion, "Why can't I go to his house?" Xiao Dao thought for a moment, probably because you're surnamed Song. And the young master is surnamed Sui. You're not family." I nodded thoughtfully. That evening, the swallow-shaped kite took flight, swaying back and forth in the sky above my courtyard. Tilting my head up, I caught sight of Sui Yi. The youth nimbly leaped down from the wall, his agile figure and fair complexion radiating a distinct vitality against the heavy dusk. I froze for a moment. Brother Shizzy, with a light lift of his brows, he scooped me up and slung me over his shoulder. I'm here to steal you back. From then on, whenever the kite soared into the sky, he would appear atop the wall to whisk me away for adventures. When unwell, he would only take me for 2 laps around the courtyard wall. When feeling better, he would bring me to the small shop at the end of the alley for wontons, though occasionally would also go to Squire Lee's courtyard wall to knock down jujubes. An outing like today's, listening to folk songs on the Qinhuai River, was a first for us. Watching the passing painted boats, I gasped in unsophisticated wonder. How lively it is. Today he wore a long robe of slate blue with a mandarin collar, making his skin appear even paler. His raven-black hair, under the dazzling lights of the Qinhuai River, looked both exquisite and nobly refined. I looked at my own empty clothes and felt ashamed, too thin, dry and shriveled, not the least bit attractive. What's more, the girl playing music at the bow of the boat was quite beautiful. Sui Yi. I stared at him awkwardly. Did you really come here just to listen to music? As I spoke, several women filed in one after another, all dressed in sheer gauzy garments that invited improper thoughts. He seemed lost in thought, frowning as he asked, "What?" I deliberately put on a stern face. I said, "I'm going back to tell your mother." "Did I offend you? Going to tattle again? Who told you to be so greedy for beauty?" He let out a scoffing sound. "Keep dreaming. This young master has no interest in coveting you." What do you mean, no interest in me?" I narrowed my eyes and leaned closer to him, then suddenly curved my brows and eyes in a smile. "I never said the beauty was me. Did you secretly think so in your heart?" The maid set down the trays and lifted the curtains to leave. The woman at the bow strummed her peeper, singing a soft Wu dialect melody. Sui Yi's face, bathed in the breeze, looked exceptionally handsome. From the riverbank, a child's voice suddenly cried out, "Light the fireworks." Then, with a bang, fireworks burst across the sky, scattering into a dazzling display. After the peak of brilliance, only scattered embers remained, drifting down like stars. The fireworks reflected in Sui Yi's eyes, and I found myself staring, mesmerized. Then I heard him say, "Still not as stunning as this young master." Me. This sounds quite familiar. At the Lantern Festival a year ago, a woman bumped into Sui Yi's arms. It was none other than Princess Rongshan. Spoiled since childhood, she had a willful temperament. Having taken a liking to Sui Yi, she didn't beat around the bush and declared bluntly, "Hey, you're quite handsome. I like you." Sui Yi merely nodded, The Lantern Festival's glow set the perfect atmosphere as Princess Rongshan blushed and added, "When I saw you at the palace banquet, I fell for you at first sight. My feelings are genuine." Sui Yi nodded understandingly. "I get it. After all, this young master is quite handsome." The princess froze momentarily. At a loss for words, Sui Yi picked up a lantern and asked softly while lowering his gaze, "Anything else? You haven't given me your answer yet." "Oh," he paused, enunciating each word clearly. "I like those who are even better looking than me." The princess ran home in tears, while Sui Yi gritted his teeth and endured the beating. His father punished him by making him kneel in the ancestral hall. I sneaked in to bring him food, only to find him lying on the prayer mat, already fast asleep. "Sui Yi." I called his name softly, unable to suppress the bitterness in my heart, bound to the system. I knew every detail of the entire book. How could I not be aware of his fate? Princess Rongshan would become his future wife. They would meet at the palace banquet, become acquainted today, and grow fond of each other over time. As for me, I was merely his childhood friend from the past, not even entitled to confess my feelings for him. The system blared in my ear. "Alert, alert. Detected excessive emotional fluctuations toward the male supporting character. Please adjust immediately. If values exceed the limit, compulsory measures will be taken to erase all memories between you and him." I set down the food box, my voice trembling. "Understood. How ridiculous. I'm not allowed to love him, because I'm the female lead." "Song Yoon," Sui Yi's helpless voice sounded. "I merely complimented my own looks. Was that really worth getting so upset you'd cry?" I gathered my thoughts and curled my lips. I wasn't about to cry. And besides, you're naturally good-looking. Those obsidian-bright eyes across from me sparkled as he raised an eyebrow. Such silver-tongued flattery, this young master approves. Does the young master have a reward for me? Then, what would you like? How about the sesame cakes from Uncle Lee's shop at the alley entrance? No, why? Too greasy. Propping his head lazily, he glanced at me before pinching a piece of pastry and stuffing it to my lips. Young master's in a good mood today, here's a yam cake for you. I took a bite from his hand and said while chewing, do you know how long it's been since I last had meat? Every day you just tease me with it. Wasn't there meat in the medicinal porridge you drink daily? That doesn't count. At this, his eyebrows visibly lifted as he slowly remarked, at the palace banquet in the 10th year of Yuanan, you secretly ate pig's trotters and then lay in bed for 10 days afterward. When I visited you, you tearfully promised, Brother Shizzy. I'll never be greedy with food again. My gaze drifted away. No need to go into such detail. He laughed, his dark eyes twinkling like stars. Not only that, but you also grabbed my hand, insisting I stay with you, and even said, don't say it. I pushed his hand back and shoved the pastry toward his lips. This yam cake is really good. You should try it. To my surprise, Sui Yi's expression changed abruptly. Hey, what are you doing on the yam cake? A crescent-shaped bite mark was strikingly visible, pressed tightly against his lower lip. I suddenly understood and felt my face burn crimson. On that summer night, the cool breeze filled my sleeves but still couldn't dispel the restlessness on my face. Sui Yi's gaze swept leisurely over my face before he reached out to pinch my cheek. You'd let this prince eat your leftovers, Jay, just like that. I hastily apologized. This humble one knows his mistake. Then what should you do? This humble one will immediately select the most exquisite one for the young master. That won't be necessary. He leaned in closer, a smile playing on his lips like a mischievous wolf cub. Come to my study tomorrow, and I shall forgive you. Study? I eyed him suspiciously. Since when have you been so diligent? He popped a pastry into his mouth. When have I ever not been diligent? Every day. Songyun, would you like to rephrase that? Alright then. May I ask what this ambitious young master Sui wants this humble servant to do in the study? Add some romantic ambience with a beauty's company. Not allowed. He lifted his eyelids slightly, looking utterly bewitching. I admit I was seduced by his beauty, stammering foolishly, alright then. For him to invite me to study together was truly a first in this lifetime. If I refuse, it would seem rather petty of me. At noon the next day, I arrived as promised. Sui Yi smiled and pressed me down at the desk. Right, what? He took out a stack of paper and smoothed it before me. The young master's letter of repentance. Sure enough, that damn Sui Yi is up to no good. Cicadas screeched outside the window, yet the room was eerily quiet. Save for the soft rustling of pages stirred by the breeze, the boy rested his head on his arm, sleeping peacefully. Annoyed, I stopped writing, crumpled 2 paper balls, and threw them at him. The balls hit his back. But he didn't even lift his head. What a deep sleeper. Suyi. I leaned close to his ear and teased in an exaggerated tone. Your dad's here. He reluctantly opened his eyes, his gaze hazy as if veiled in mist. Stop messing around. Let me sleep a little longer. I've been here for 2 hours. And you've slept for 2 hours. Were you slacking off last night? He caught my mischievous hand. Little Song Tail, if you keep causing trouble, don't blame me for tying you up. Young master's word is law. Threatening me, then you can write the rest of your repentance letter yourself. The fragrance of flowers in the courtyard was rich. A gust of wind blew past, lifting the stray hairs on his forehead. Still with his eyes closed, he murmured softly, I'll get up in 15 minutes. And what if you can't get up? Stop nagging. Fine. Someone's got serious morning grumpiness. Well, this young lady isn't exactly a saint either. I sat to the side, completely at ease with my laziness. After all, it wasn't me who failed to submit the assignment, nor was it me who'd be punished by the teacher. Who'd want to help him write this damned letter of repentance anyway? I glared at him fiercely. If he had any conscience left, he should wake up right now and start copying the text with me. The sun gradually slanted, and the harsh afternoon light spilled through the window, creeping onto his face, yet he still hadn't woken. The bright room made the faint shadows under his eyes all the more visible. My gaze paused, and my anger instantly dissipated. Have you not been resting well lately? As I spoke, my hand moved faster than my thoughts. Lifting to shield his face, the wide sleeve of my robe fell, just enough to block the sunlight. He slept in the shade, his furrowed brow relaxing. The summer breeze was warm as it swept through the hall. Sui Yi in sleep was a different person altogether. The usual air of arrogance and defiance had melted away, leaving behind an inexplicable softness. I raised my hand higher. This young lady is feeling merciful today, so I'll let you off for now. The system's nagging voice rang in my ears again. Warning, warning, host's behavior toward the male supporting character is overly intimate. Please, I deftly interrupted, I'm shading myself. Not him. Under the sleeve of my garment, it just so happened to cover both of us. So, strictly speaking, Sui Yi was merely benefiting from my shade. The system shut up in frustration, then let out a long sigh. You and he have no future. His character isn't the devoted second male lead, he's just your childhood friend. I lowered my eyelids. I know. Then why are you still like this? What if you were me? It seemed puzzled. What do you mean? I looked at the young man before me and spoke slowly. To you, I may just be a character in a book, but I am truly real. I met Sui Yi when I was young. He treated me with sincerity and grew up alongside me. He remembered my dietary restrictions, carried my medicine with him at all times. If you had met such a pure and genuine boy from childhood, could you have turned a blind eye and fallen for someone else? After I finished speaking, the system fell silent, showing no response for a long while. I didn't expect it to answer. I merely smiled, my voice blending into the chorus of summer insects. He is wonderful, it's just that this world forbids me from loving him. After the Dragon Boat Festival, Sui Yi returned to the Imperial College to continue his studies. I was lazing about at home when, for the first time ever, I received an invitation. The Princess Royal was hosting a flower viewing banquet, inviting all the young masters and noble ladies of the capital to attend. Mother folded the invitation and muttered, "How strange. Why would the Princess Royal send an invitation to our household? In your condition, how could you possibly go admire those wretched flowers?" I was just barefoot, reaching for grapes on the table when she slapped me back onto the couch. "No socks and already on the floor, isn't it cold down there?" "Mother, you're being overprotective. I've been feeling much better lately," I said, tossing a grape into my mouth. With 30 health points remaining, I felt completely refreshed. She put on a stern face. "If you're feeling better, then rest properly. I'll decline this banquet invitation for you." "No, no. We absolutely cannot decline the Grand Princess's invitation. Besides, Pei Shu would be there too." I needed to go and advance the plot. On the day of the flower viewing banquet, the noble ladies wore light, elegant dresses, all exquisitely and appropriately adorned except for me, whom my mother had bundled up like a zongzi. I took off my outer robe and handed it to Xiaodao, keeping only a thin shawl draped over my shoulders. The maidservant leading the way walked briskly ahead, and Xiaodao called out anxiously, "Slow down, my young mistress isn't in good health." The maid turned her head, rolling her eyes skyward. "The Grand Princess is waiting up ahead. I can't afford to delay and keep her waiting. Isn't it just flower viewing? Why must we observe an auspicious hour?" I grasped Xiaotao's hand. "No matter, if someone with eye disease can walk swiftly, why shouldn't I be able to?" The maid's eye twitched, and with a stomp of her foot, she quickened her pace. Truly worthy of being the Grand Princess's personal maid, her temper mirrors her mistress's exactly. The system whispered in my ear, "The Grand Princess is a supporting female character, so naturally she dislikes you. Be careful in everything. Remember to wait for Pei Shu by the lake in the rear garden at 3 p.m. Completing this plot will add 10 life points." I nodded, standing by the lake for a while to earn 10 life points. That's quite a bargain. But indeed, there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. When I finally encountered the disheveled Pei Shu by the lakeside, I couldn't help but sigh deeply. What a coincidence. Chief Minister. His eyes burned crimson. "Why is it you again?" "I'm just here to enjoy the breeze. Not specifically to block your way." A ding sounded in my ears. Plot completed. 10 life points have been credited. Relieved, I waved at him with a smile. "My lord, I'll take my leave now." My hand was suddenly seized, and before I could react, I was pulled into a scorching embrace. Pei Shu lowered his head, his eyes momentarily dazed. Don't go, men and women should not touch each other. I pushed him away with all my might, hugging my arms in disbelief. Did Pei Shu take the wrong medicine? The young chief counselor's face was deathly pale, his thin lips pressed tightly together, his eyes seeming to conceal a dense twilight. He suddenly closed his eyes and raised a hand to his forehead. Get out of my way. Are you sick? What's with the attitude? Right on cue, another announcement came. Physical contact initiated. 10 life points have been credited. Me, forget it. No need to be angry, just consider it as being butted by a pig. I turned around, lifted my skirt, and walked away. Pei Shu in this state was either on the wrong medicine or having a seizure. Staying near him was downright dangerous. Yet my hand was seized again, and he uttered abruptly, "Au." With that, he pulled me by the waist and kissed me. I covered my mouth with my hand, eyes wide in shock. Pei Shu. Have you lost your mind? I'm Songyun. I feel terrible. What does your suffering have to do with me? Qiao Lanyu is at the Imperial College. For a brief moment, clarity returned to his eyes, his voice hoarse and nearly broken. The Grand Princess drugged me. Drugged? Then don't drag me into this. Can't you just jump into the lake to sober up? Not far away, a servant's voice grew closer. Lord Pei is drunk, someone must find him at once. Then came a flurry of hurried footsteps from all directions. My heart clenched, and I struggled frantically. If others saw me tangled up with Pei Shu like this, it would be disastrous. Let go. His gaze darkened as he pulled me up into the tree, tightly covering my mouth with his hand. The dense foliage perfectly concealed our figures. The previously clear weather suddenly turned gloomy, and a strong wind rose, masking Pei Shu's heavy breathing beneath the howling gale. The men below searched meticulously, leaving no patch of grass unchecked. The storm's about to hit. Could Lord Pei have already left? Speak less. The princess told you to find someone, so just keep quiet and search. No matter where they are. The green-clad servant shut his mouth, wearing an expression of sudden understanding. The Grand Princess's estate was vast indeed. By the time the group of servants finished searching this area, the rain had intensified to a torrential downpour. Only after they had gone far enough did Pei Shu release his grip. Drenched by the heavy rain, he seemed sobered, looking at me with a complicated expression. My apologies. I pulled up the garment slipping off my shoulder and slapped him across the face. The world turned dim as rain lashed violently against the leaves. He tilted his head slightly, his eyelashes fluttering. That clammy sensation still seemed to cling to the side of my neck. I scrubbed at it furiously with my sleeve. My voice trembling. Move, you disgust me. His expression darkened instantly. I didn't mean to, not on purpose. Songyun, whether I have those kinds of feelings for you or not, you should know best. Then should I thank you? Thank you for being willing to touch me. His lips pressed into a tight line. This was my fault. I don't mean to make excuses, but just now, my body wasn't under my control. In an instant, a phrase the system had evasively uttered when I left home today flashed through my mind. The rules of this world won't permit you to love anyone else. So, is this the rule? Is this supposed to be my fate? Oppressive, suffocating. A sharp pain struck my heart as I gasped for breath, my breathing threatening to drown in the endless downpour. Pei Shu sensed something was wrong and asked in a low voice, "What's the matter with you? Medicine? What medicine? Are you having another episode?" "A little peach. You don't have any on you." "I do, but it's in my outer robe." In an instant, my body lost control, toppling backward. The rain hung suspended in midair. The world plunged into utter silence. Everything grew slow and interminable, the lush green canopy overhead shielding us. I reached out, only managing to grasp a corner of Pei Shu's sleeve. The last thing I saw was him leaping down. "Songyun, Sui Yi." The young man was slumped over the desk asleep when someone tapped him on the shoulder from behind. He reluctantly opened his eyes. "Classes are already over. Why are you still sleeping?" The person wore plain white robes, the most common attire for Imperial College students, yet on him, they looked strangely alluring. Sui Yi glanced at him and frowned. "What do you want? I kindly reminded you. Why are you so fierce? Did you stay up late reading medical books again last night?" As he spoke, he flicked open the folding fan in his hand and fanned himself with exaggerated flair. "So what if I did? Nothing much, except it's not me who's unbalanced in my studies. Nor is it me who skipped algorithm class to attend pharmacology and got caught. Lu Jiao, have you eaten too much? TSK. My fault for meddling. He snapped his folding fan shut and glanced at the sky. I must be off now, need to get back before the rain comes. Sui Yi followed his gaze and only then noticed how ominously dark the sky had become. Layers of clouds hung heavily at the horizon like rolled-up scrolls, while leaves cascaded intermittently from the trees. The wind churned up the earthy scent of damp soil. These were the signs of an impending downpour. For some reason, an old memory surfaced in his mind, a frail girl leaning against the windowsill like a sickly kitten, stretching her hand to catch the rain beyond the eaves as she murmured, I love rainy days most, yet I also wish it would never rain. At that time, he pretended to be reading his father's tattered military manual, but his eyes were firmly fixed on her. Why? Because after the rain, I always fall ill. She turned her head, her eyes sparkling with amusement. Then I'd have to trouble you, young master, to keep me company while I take my medicine. He scoffed. Little song tale, you've got some nerve. Do you think this young master is at your beck and call? Though his words said otherwise, the tips of his ears turned red. Actually, he wasn't the least bit annoyed by her clingy behavior. In fact, he rather liked it. Sui Yi snapped out of her thoughts and said to Lu Jiao, give me a ride, I'm heading back to the residence too. What, you're not staying in the dormitory anymore? Yes. Someone's waiting for me at home. The weather changed abruptly. No sooner had they boarded the carriage than a torrential downpour began, pouring relentlessly. The carriage struggled through the rain, rattling noisily along the way. Lu Jiao smiled apologetically. This carriage is a 3-generation family heirloom. It's gotten a bit old with time. Sui Yi glanced at the leaking roof, his eyebrow twitching slightly. Is this what you call growing old? Clearly. Half of you has already rotted away. Lu Jiao deftly lifted the teapot lid, catching the rainwater. Who exactly is waiting for you back home? Didn't you used to avoid your father and refuse to return to the estate? The topic shifted abruptly. As erratic as the person himself, Sui Yi raised an eyebrow. None of your business, kid. Got a secret rendezvous. Princess Rongshan. Lu Jiao clicked his tongue in admiration. Even dressed as a man. She climbed over the wall to see you at the academy. That's some deep affection. Just as he was moved by such devotion, he heard Sui Yi's belated reply. Don't know her. Well, this young master Sui truly lacks romantic sensibility, completely wasting the young lady's devoted affection. Lu Jiao wanted to flick open his fan, but his hands were still holding a teapot, so he had to abandon the idea. At that moment, the carriage suddenly jolted. The teapot in his hand clattered to the floor as his body was thrown forward by the momentum, his head striking the wooden panel with a heavy thud, amidst the pouring rain. The muffled voice of the coachman came from outside. Young master Sui, our carriage has collided with another. Who? Have they got a death wish? Clutching his forehead, he caught sight of Sui Yi bracing himself against the carriage roof, sitting perfectly steady in his seat, which only fueled his anger. I asked who it was. Have you lost your tongue? It's Minister Pei's carriage. As soon as the words fell, the curtain was abruptly lifted, revealing the young chief minister standing in the rain, his brows and eyes shrouded in mist. Lu Jiao forced an awkward smile. Minister Pei, Sui Yi. The visitor urgently cut him off, his gaze fixed on the youth in the corner. Get down now, Songyun is in my carriage. A thin flash streaked across the sky. Sui Yi's sharp eyes moved faster than lightning as he swept his robe aside and strode into the rain. The carriage door stood wide open, revealing a scene of utter chaos inside. The drenched girl breathed weakly, slumped against the carriage wall in critical condition, so reminiscent of when the imperial physician had declared her beyond cure 8 years ago. His pupils constricted violently, shedding his outer robe. He gathered her into his arms and swiftly pressed acupoints near her chest with practiced precision. In an instant, the woman in his arms exhaled deeply, her complexion no longer pale, but as she moved, her long hair slipped aside, revealing bluish-purple marks on her neck. This was, Sui Yi's heart turned cold with realization. Pei Shu was just about to explain. A fist came crashing toward his face with a force that shook the heavens. He staggered back 2 steps, barely managing to steady himself. But a trickle of blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. The wilderness stretched empty around them, thunder rumbling as the sky flashed for a brief moment. The young man glared at him coldly, his expression more ruthless than ever before. "Pei Shu," he said, "after today, I'll come back to kill you." The night rain pattered against the window, the bitter scent of medicine hanging in the air. Muffled sobs and sighs drifted near and far, as if separated by a curtain of rain. Eyelids heavy, darkness enveloped my vision. Consciousness had nearly lost its grip on the body. Ordinarily, this only happened when health points approached zero. As if reading my mind, the system spoke. "Your health points are critically low." Just as I thought, a sharp headache struck, making me furrow my brows in discomfort. What's going on? The world is extremely unstable, with too many interfering factors. The plot has deviated far from the original book, thus triggering the penalty mechanism, deducting your life points. I suddenly felt like laughing. Penalty mechanism, for not being assaulted by Pei Shu, or for slapping him. But here's your official, the official pairing. I wearily took over the conversation, my voice barely a whisper. "I've been feeling strange about this all along. My early death from illness was a deviation from the original book, which is why I got bound to the system. My liking for Sui Yi was also a deviation, which is why you control me. But isn't Pei Shu's deviation even greater? Why has no one questioned that?" The system explained. "This world unfolds with you at its center. We can only intervene with you. You're wrong, in this world. Pei Shu and Xiao Lanyu are the true center." "Not at all," I pretended not to hear. "If I'm not mistaken, his official match wasn't me to begin with. Xiao Lanyu's appearance wasn't accidental. She was a character who should have existed in the original story." "You're not in good health right now. Don't overthink things." "Overthink," I scoffed. "I may be ill, but my mind isn't broken." Looking back now, all the signs were there. Why did interacting with Xiao Lanyu increase my life points? Why couldn't the normally rational Pei Shu control himself simply because in his lovesick confusion, he mistook me for Xiao Lanyu? The night breeze carried floral scents as it blew, making the candle flames flicker unsteadily. These 9 years of life have felt like a long dream. Now, it's time to wake up. I opened my eyes. "You once said that we're like a symbiotic relationship." The system hesitated. "Yes." I struggled to get up, my entire body aching as if every bone had come loose. Cold sweat pouring down my back until my clothes were soaked through. The system urged anxiously. "What are you doing? Lie down quickly." Outside, distant voices clamored in argument, yet inside the room, it was deathly quiet, so silent you could hear a pin drop. Suddenly, I let out a faint, almost imperceptible laugh. All this absurdity turned out to be nothing but a joke in the end. Illness incurable, love unspoken, life reduced to clinging to someone like Pei Shu. How utterly dull. I fumbled beneath the bed for the white silk, then struggled onto a stool to drape it over the beam. The system shrieked, "Don't do anything foolish. I'll tell you whatever you want to know." The night rain drizzled outside the window, the distant clamor still unceasing, the woman's sobs. The man's low voice separated by a door into another world. The flickering firelight traced gaunt shadows on the wall. Listening to the rain, I'd never felt so at ease as now. What I wanted to know, I already know. What about Sui Yi? What about your father and mother? What will they do after you're gone? Aren't you afraid this world will collapse? I smiled in relief. Whether it collapses or not, don't you already know? With that, I kicked the stool away violently, and the sensation of suffocation came over me, wrapping around my nose and throat like a tide. I shut my eyes tightly, enduring wave after wave of dull pain in my chest. The system screamed, "Madness! Madness! Call for help! Call for help! You can't die yet." How noisy. I lowered my hands, letting myself be slowly suffocated. Its voice quickened. "There is a way. I'll tell you everything. You were originally Pei Shu's unattainable white moonlight, the one he loved but couldn't have. But many readers weren't satisfied with this setup. Male-oriented stories can't tolerate a simp protagonist. That's why I came to this world, to switch your roles." My chest felt like it was being sliced by a knife. I had no energy left to listen. "We can finish the plot. After that, you can do whatever you want to do." The shout suddenly weakened as a stuttering mechanical voice rang out. "Alert! Monitoring System DA Mage. System DA Mage." Beep! A piercing screech clamored in my ears. On the brink of death, my hearing became unnaturally acute. My wandering consciousness was partially pulled back. With trembling hands, I frantically groped for the knife hidden in my sleeve. Hurry, I can't hold my breath any longer. Suddenly, the white silk noose around my neck snapped, and a figure swooped in to catch me. Air rushed back into my lungs as I gasped frantically, coughing violently. Songyun, who allowed you to die? This voice. My gaze swept over him. The young man's thin lips were pressed tightly together, his pitch-black eyes like pools of dense fog and thick clouds. Leaning weakly in his embrace, I struggled to speak. It's not what you think. I didn't mean to die. Where did that white silk come from? Who is hanging from it? Songyun. His eyes were downcast, the corners slightly reddened. Did you ever consider the consequences when you did all this? Something seemed to tear open in my heart as I weakly closed my eyes. I'm sorry. The burning pain at the nape of her neck never subsided, searing like fire. It hurts. Sui-Yi's body stiffened. I'll call the physician. Don't go. Father and mother would be heartbroken. The rain pattered rhythmically on the roof tiles, turning everything damp and hazy. The boy's eyes were hollow as he asked hoarsely, what about me? Do I not have a heart? Song Xiaoweiba, do you think I'm made of iron? Without any feelings, my heart suddenly clenched. I reached up to cover his eyes. Don't be sad. If you cry, I'll cry too. Who said I was going to cry? Your eyes are all red. I forced a faint smile. Brother Shizzy, are you actually a crybaby? The grip around my waist suddenly tightened as he pulled me into his embrace. Gritting his teeth, yes, I can cry. If you die, I'll follow Meng Jianyue's example and weep until your grave collapses. Then I'll turn into a little ghost and come find you, draining your yang energy every day. How childish you are. I carefully wrapped my arms around his waist, pressing my face against his shoulder. You're the childish one, really. This time, the system's shrill alarm finally didn't sound. My eyes stung as I held him even tighter. This was the person I'd yearned for all these years, the embrace I'd longed for, just as I'd imagined, dry and warm, carrying a faint scent of mugwort. Tears fell without warning. I choked back a sob. Don't cry, no being sentimental, can't let Sui-Yi worry. But the youth was exceptionally sharp. He gripped my shoulders and pushed me away. Looking down, the orange lamplight enveloped the figure before him, casting an even more pitiful glow on that pale, sorrowful face. His heart trembled. Don't cry, it's my fault. I was too harsh. I pouted. I'm not crying. Then smile for me. Don't laugh. Dog Sui, can't you read the room? He raised his hand to wipe my tears, his expression softening, his smiling eyes gently curving, brimming with a radiant and captivating charm. His hand suddenly paused by my cheek, and he said with a teasing smile, if you cry and laugh at the same time, will your dimples fill with water? How utterly clueless. I pushed him away in a huff and made to stand up. Suddenly he wrapped an arm around my waist and lifted me effortlessly. Stop squirming. This lord is feeling merciful. I'll carry you for a while. From this angle, I could see his sharp jawline and slightly pursed lips. My heart fluttered a little as I muttered under my breath, all dressed up like a gentleman. Speak properly. All dressed up like a gentleman. All right, I get it. You're just jealous of how handsome this young master is. In an instant, memory fluttered forward like a dancing butterfly, passing through long streets, crowds, and the high horse of the top scholar, slipping through the window crack to alight upon a crimson flower by the young man's ear. Four figures lurked furtively against the wall. The Prince of Jiannan was the first to flush with anger. That little brat, I'll go drag him out right now. The princess consort grabbed his hand. Go, don't make trouble. The couple beside them remained much calmer, exchanging a glance before sighing in unison. Their daughter had been infatuated with the young lord next door since childhood, who didn't know her feelings. Now, she had finally found her ideal match. Both families spoke simultaneously, in-laws, pausing in surprise. They then laughed together. Then this marriage is settled. End of main text. Side story 1. The System 008174 encountered the first bottleneck of its career. The White Moonlight in a male-oriented power fantasy novel, Songyun. Its mission was to turn the White Moonlight into a simp, enhancing the novel's thrill factor. But this 8-year-old girl was terrifyingly clear-headed. It brainwashed her. But she turned a deaf ear. It made her approach the male lead. Yet she coughed up blood and lay still.
When it threatened her with her life points, she reluctantly carried out the task. It thought her nature was just like this, cold, indifferent, and careless about everything. But in front of that young man, she became a completely different person. The system had no choice but to weave a series of lies to deceive her into letting go of her feelings. Who knew this person was so stubborn? Once they set their mind on something, they wouldn't let go, until it watched as she saw through everything, with a heart set on mutual destruction, determined to expel it from her body. The system was severely damaged and sent back to the factory for repairs. Fellow System 006128 looked at it and asked without emotion, "Mission failed." It nodded. "It's all right. The headquarters is upgrading. Failed missions can be restarted once." It recalled the stubborn expression on the girl's face and sighed. "Even if we restart, it'll still be a failure. I'm not going." 006128 was surprised. "Who is it that even you can't handle?" It pondered for a moment. Timid yet bold, afraid of death yet unafraid, lovesick yet not lovesick. This person becomes a completely different being in front of those they like versus those they don't. 008174 grew perplexed, suddenly pausing to ask, "What exactly are human emotions like?" 006128, "I don't know." Suddenly, a congratulatory message lit up on the headquarters screen. "Congratulations to 008174 for exceeding the task quota. The subplot of Sui Yi times Song Yoon has gained immense reader popularity, with the book's filler content decreasing by 30%, sweetness increasing by 50%, and like-to-read ratio soaring by 200%. As a special reward, 008174 has been awarded 10,000 points and upgraded from a 3-star to a 4-star system. The reward has been credited. Please check your account." 008147. What the hell happened during its brief absence? Now it was 006128's turn to be confused. A flicker of bewilderment crossed its rigid face. "Didn't you say it failed?" 008147 remained utterly baffled. "I have no idea either." Side story 2. Peishu. Recently, 2 major events have occurred in the capital. First, the frail young lady of the Song family suddenly regained her health and became engaged to the distinguished heir of the southern prince next door. The pair appeared together everywhere, displaying an intimacy that resembled an old married couple. The aristocratic young master who was friendly with Sui Yi fell silent, then spat in his face. "You've been hiding such a beautiful and charming childhood sweetheart all this time. How scheming." He smiled tenderly. "Can't help it. The little girl has her heart set on me and doesn't fancy any of you." The crowd was force-fed a mouthful of dog food, finding it unbearably sweet. Secondly, the current chief grand secretary was dragged into an alley and given a thorough beating. Rumor has it his injuries were severe, including a broken leg. He was particularly concerned about saving face, insisting to outsiders that he had simply fallen while drunk and that no one else was involved. A group of sycophantic ministers came to his door bearing gifts, only to be turned away. Everyone speculated, who could have beaten him up? Who could make Peishu willingly swallow such humiliation in silence? Later, the speculations grew increasingly absurd, even pointing fingers at the imperial family. After that, everyone kept tight-lipped, merely exchanging secretive smiles when the topic arose. "Hush, hush, best not to speak of it." A month later, Peishu was demoted by 1 rank. The emperor sighed, looking at Peishu's sullen face. "Do not blame me, my dear minister. I truly do prefer women. You see." Extra Chapter 3. Childhood. Sui Yi had been extremely annoyed lately. He'd gained a little sister, the kind you couldn't shake off no matter what. "I don't want to talk to you anymore." He said this with a blade of dogtail grass between his teeth, leaning crookedly against a tree. Dappled light and scattered shadows flickered across the boy's face as he closed his eyes, his lashes falling like crow's feathers. "But you can't." The little dumpling of a girl looked up from beneath the tree, her cheeks slightly flushed from the sun. "Big brother Shizzy promised to take me out to set off firecrackers today." The boy glanced sideways at the child under the tree, reciting like a chant. "On the 15th day of the 3rd month, Song Yoon cut her hand, and Sui Yi got beaten. On the 7th day of the 4th month, Song Yoon took a fall, and Sui Yi got beaten. On the 20th day of the 4th month, Song Yoon dirted her clothes, and Sui Yi got beaten." He grew increasingly agitated as he spoke, finally turning over with a huff. "The 3rd day of the 5th month, Song Yoon." The girl's gaze gradually filled with grievance, her small face scrunching up as tears began to fall with soft pitter-patter sounds. "Brother Shizzy, do you not like me anymore?" Hearing the crying, Sui Yi felt his eyelids twitch uncontrollably. The fear of being dominated by her in the past igniting his survival instincts as a young man, his crimson robes fluttering. He leaped down in one swift motion and scooped her into his arms. Hey, don't cry. When did I ever say such a thing? He wiped her tears, but the more he wiped, the more they flowed. Is this little dumpling made of water? Stop crying. No more tears. If he kept crying, his father would come after him with a stick again. His eyes wandered as he answered perfunctorily, yeah. I guess so. Then am I your precious darling? The little girl pressed her advantage, tugging at his shirt front with eager anticipation. What heart? What liver? What precious treasure? What kind of heart, liver, precious treasure is this? Sui Yi's face darkened as he looked at the tear-streaked face in his arms, gritting his teeth. Yes, you are my heart, my liver, my precious, my treasure. After saying this, he nearly vomited up last night's dinner, yet she planted a loud, smacking kiss on his cheek. The boy instantly bristled like a cat, his face flushing scarlet. Hey, why did you suddenly kiss him? Consider Sui Yi, the dignified heir of the southern frontier prince. The little tyrant of the capital, unlearned and unskilled, seemed tailor-made for him. Profligate scion might as well have been coined for his exclusive use, and so even he himself believed that in the art of profligacy, he stood unrivaled across the entire capital. Never did he expect that at the age of 7, a family would suddenly move in next door and quickly become inseparable from his mother. In this household, there was also a girl a year younger than him, as delicate as carved jade, with a sweet and gentle temperament. She would cling to him every day, calling him big brother in the most endearing tone, and so, he gained a little shadow. It was endlessly annoying. He couldn't bring himself to be harsh with her. Yet he couldn't bear to shake her off either. Songyun grew more beautiful and adorable with each passing day. Whenever Sui Yi took her out for a stroll, they always drew admiring glances. He puffed up with pride in his heart. Do you have such an adorable childhood sweetheart? Do you? You don't, but I do. Thinking of this, he looked at the little bundle in his arms and found her even more pleasing to the eye. Oh well, since she's so adorable, he might as well spend another day playing with her. The end.